There is an island in the Bay of Bengal, 50 kilometers off the coast of India. 72 square kilometers of dense, impenetrable jungle, the size of Manhattan. We have no idea what language the people inside speak. We do not know their name for themselves. We do not know their rituals, their beliefs, or the full story of their history. What we do know is this. If you land on that island, they will kill you. In November 2018, a young American man named John Allen Chow rode toward that island alone. He had been warned. By experts, by governments, by everyone who knew what lived on that island. He went anyway. North Sentinel Island has been inhabited for at least 60,000 years. That makes the Sentinelese one of the oldest continuous civilizations on Earth. They survived the Ice Age. They survived every empire that rose and fell around them. And for all of that time, they have wanted one thing: to be left alone. India declared the island a protected zone in 1956. Today, it is illegal for anyone, including Indian citizens, to approach. The exclusion zone extends 3 nautical miles from the shore in every direction. That law exists for 2 reasons: to protect outsiders from the Sentinelese, and to protect the Sentinelese from outsiders. The first recorded contact came in 1867. A merchant ship called the Nineveh ran aground on the island's reef. 86 survivors made it to the beach. For 3 days, nothing happened. The crew gathered fruit. They waited. They hoped. Then, on the 4th morning, the Sentinelese appeared at the tree line, armed. They advanced. A British Royal Navy vessel happened to pass by and evacuated the crew just before the warriors reached them. That was the first contact on record. It would set the pattern for everything that followed. In 1880, a British colonial officer named Maurice Vidal Portman arrived with a heavily armed expedition. He found almost nothing. The Sentinelese melted into the jungle and disappeared. But eventually, his men caught 6 of them, an elderly couple and 4 children, and took them back to Port Blair. The elderly man and woman became ill almost immediately. They had no immunity to outside diseases. They died within days. Portman sent the 4 children back to the island with gifts. He believed this would build goodwill. Anthropologists believe it did the opposite. Those children almost certainly carried diseases the island had never seen. Whatever happened next, we will never know. For the next 87 years, the world largely left North Sentinel alone. Then, in 1967, the Indian government began a series of peaceful contact expeditions. The man who led most of them was an anthropologist named T.N. Pandit. He spent decades sailing to the island, leaving gifts on the beach and retreating. The response was almost always the same: arrows. Sometimes the gifts were taken, sometimes they were buried in the sand, a signal that needed no translation. But Pandit kept going back. Year after year, decade after decade. His logic: if they saw the same faces, the same gestures, eventually they might not reach for their bows. And then, it happened. In January 1991, the Sentinelese walked to the waterline without weapons. They took coconuts from the visitors' hands. They touched the boat. Some of them smiled. It was, by any measure, a miracle. T.N. Pandit described it as the most extraordinary moment of his career. He was certain that sustained, peaceful contact was now possible. He was wrong. The very next expedition was met with arrows again. India quietly ended the contact program in 1996. The door had closed. On December 26, 2004, the Indian Ocean tsunami killed 230,000 people across 14 countries. North Sentinel Island was directly in its path. The Indian government sent a helicopter to assess whether anyone had survived. A Sentinelese man walked onto the beach and fired an arrow at the helicopter. The helicopter banked and left, all they could confirm. At least one Sentinelese man had survived the tsunami and was very much unwilling to be rescued. In January 2006, 2 Indian fishermen allowed their boat to drift while they slept. By morning, it had grounded on the reef surrounding North Sentinel Island. Both men were killed. The Coast Guard spent several days attempting to recover the bodies. Every approach was met with arrows. The bodies were never recovered. And then came John Allen Chow, 26 years old, an American missionary and adventurer. He had been planning to visit North Sentinel Island for years, not to study the Sentinelese, to convert them. His journal shows a man who understood the danger and chose to ignore it. He bribed local fishermen to take him close. On November the 16th, he approached alone by kayak. He called out to the shore. He was driven back by arrows. He returned to the fisherman's boat. He wrote in his journal. He prayed. The next morning, he went back. The fishermen watched from a distance. They saw Chow reach the beach. They saw the Sentinelese. And then, they saw him fall. The following morning, they saw the Sentinelese dragging something along the beach. They waited 3 days before returning to port. John Allen Chow was not coming back. India launched an investigation. 7 fishermen who helped Chow were arrested. The Sentinelese faced no charges. Under Indian law, they have the right to defend their territory. Satellite images reveal small clearings, shelters, canoes, fires. The population is estimated at somewhere between 50 and 400 people. They fish, they hunt, they build boats and fires. They have a society on that island that has functioned continuously since before the pyramids were built. And here is the question no one has fully answered. Should we ever contact them? When Europeans first contacted the Tasmanian Aboriginal people, they were gone within 75 years. When the Andaman Islands themselves were colonized, entire tribes were reduced from thousands to dozens. The Sentinelese have been clear. For every recorded contact in history, they have given the same answer. They do not want us there. Perhaps, for one small island in the Bay of Bengal, that is the right answer. The Sentinelese. One of the last peoples on Earth who have chosen, entirely on their own terms, to be left alone. If you found this as extraordinary as we did, stay with us. Next time, we follow Hiru Onoda, a Japanese soldier who kept fighting World War II for 29 years after Japan surrendered. He didn't know the war was over, and no one thought to tell him.